ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು. ಈ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ 9 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯ ವಾರ್ತಾಪತ್ರ ದೆಹಲಿ ಕೇಂದ್ರದ ಸಹಪ್ರಸಾರ. ಇದಾದ ನಂತರ ಇದರ ಕನ್ನಡ ಅನುವಾದವನ್ನು ಪ್ರಸಾರ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೇವೆ. 9 ಗಂಟೆ 10 ನಿಮಿಷಕ್ಕೆ ಎಚ್.ಎಸ್. ಅನಸೂಯ ಅವರ ಹಾಡುಗಾರಿಕೆ ಕೇಳುವಿರಿ. ಮುಂದಿನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಈಗ ಆರಂಭವಾಗುವುದು.
This is All India Radio, Bangalore, Bhadravati and Mysore. Now, in an interview, you will hear Sri M.P. Pandit of the Aurobindo Ashram on Sri Aurobindo's vision of the future. The interviewer is Justice Nittu Srinivasa Rao.
You are now a principal exponent of what Sri Aurobindo and the mother stood for. How did your association with Aurobindo Ashram begin?
Your question takes me back to 50 years ago when we were fortunate to have Vasishtha Ganapati Muni, the famous poet sage, doing tapascharya in our bungalow at Sirsi, North Canada. His disciple, Kapali Shastriyar, had come to meet him, and it was at that time that I came under his influence, and it was through him that I came to know about Sri Aurobindo, the mother, and the ashram. I was about 13 at that time. He saw my spiritual interests, but he insisted that I completed my educational career. And it was quite after some years that I first visited Sri Aurobindo Ashram, and a decision was taken for me to join the ashram permanently after completing my university career. I was really attracted to Sri Aurobindo by the affirmative spirituality that he taught, because all along I had been brought up into the tradition that spirituality, turning to God, meant in effect turning away from the world, from humanity, and finding one's salvation in God beyond. For the first time, I heard in the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the mother that salvation is not the goal of man, but perfection of life. Man is here on purpose, that is, to grow from humanity to divinity. It appealed to me very much, because it didn't call for rejection of anything in the world. And I was impressed by the kind of organized spiritual life in Sri Aurobindo Ashram, where there was a fusion between bhakti, karma, jnana yoga. In addition, a new dimension added, that of evolution of consciousness, that man is on the ascent towards God, and his mission is to organize the divine values in life around. It was with that purpose to realize those objects that I joined the ashram, and I've been there ever since. It's now 41 years.
Could you please give a broad idea of how you engage yourself as a sadhak in the ashram?
That's a very good question. As sadhaks, we are engaged all the 24 hours of the day in sadhana. But our sadhana does not mean only meditations, asanas, or any kind of austerities. An important part of our sadhana is to develop relationships in work, in thought, in feeling with others. That is, we are taught to accept our responsibility to the society and share our spiritual gains with those around. It is with that end in view that almost all the major departments of life are organized in our growing community, spiritual community. And we have all the arts and sciences reflected in the collective life. Each one of us undertakes to do some part of the collective work as karma yoga, as our labor of love for God, and we learn to do away with the normal ego desire motivation in work and replace it by dedication, unselfish work. Side by side, we read, we study what the past masters have written, what the present mystics and scientists are writing, and we are broadening our minds to receive, assimilate, and express knowledge as a growing movement. We pay particular attention to the psychological discipline which aims at awakening the soul, what we call in our philosophy the psychic being, bringing out its values of love, harmony, unity, joy in day-to-day life, and radiate those values in our immediate surroundings and seek to build them in the collectivity of which we are a part. So you would see that it is yoga with a difference. It is a yoga entailing full involvement in life. What Sri Aurobindo calls all life is yoga.
We know that during the last 3 or 4 years, you have been very much in demand outside India also to expound the ideas of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. What has been the response?
It is true, I've been doing a bit of traveling and sharing our experience and hopes with those in the West. I wouldn't say I have confined myself to propagating only the philosophy and yoga of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. I have been doing a bit in introducing Indian spiritual values as they have come down to us from the Vedic past through the Upanishadic period, filtered through the Tantras and assimilated by Sri Aurobindo and related by him to the latest thought in science. what the West calls positive spirituality. That's my theme, whether in Europe or in America or in Canada. And I have found a very warm, encouraging response to this approach. They always ask me whether they have to give up technology, material civilization, and take to a life of renunciation. I have always reminded them of our Upanishadic dictum that Annam Brahma, matter too is Brahman, and we should learn to recognize and worship God even in matter. And I am happy to say that this note of accepting this world as a field of manifestation for God is being slowly accepted everywhere, and all modern movements of spirituality are stressing on this aspect of the responsibility of man, who is the crown of evolution, in linking nature with God in his consciousness.
Would you like to say something about any feature of your experience or observation during your visits which would merit special attention?
Yes. The first thing that struck my attention is the fact that women in the West are a growing force in the evolution of humanity. They have become liberated not only physically but even mentally. And there are a great number of writers, artists, who are forging new lines in these fields. And the bulk of my audiences in the West have always consisted of middle-aged women, very responsible, very responsive, and pragmatic. I do hope this freedom of women spreads to our country, where by and large, despite all that has been said and written, our women have still to get equal opportunities to contribute to the general progress. The second point is the breakdown of the old type of education all over the world. Everyone is finding or trying to find new bases for the education of children, who as a type, the modern children, are totally different in their constitution, in their demands, from the older ones, say about 50 years ago. The third is that institutionalized religion, like the church, is no more commanding the loyalty of people. People want to have direct communion with God and have the freedom to develop their own religion individually.
You are most qualified to tell us about Sri Aurobindo's and the mother's approach to the idea of one world and their special contribution to the movement. Could you say a few words on this matter?
The one distinct feature of Sri Aurobindo's approach to human unity is that unless we give a spiritual basis for this unity, it will not be lasting. The unity has first to be realized in the heart, in the center of the soul, before it can be translated on other levels.
Thank you very much for your most illuminating answers and the inspiring message contained in them.
You are kind, sir.
You have just heard Sri M.P. Pandit of the Aurobindo Ashram on Sri Aurobindo's vision of the future. The interviewer was Justice Nittu Srinivas Rao. The program was recorded earlier in our studios and came to you from All India Radio, Bangalore.